A game warden in Montana fired 4 rounds from his .357 Magnum into a grizzly skull at point-blank range. All 4 ricocheted off the bone. He lived. Not because of those 4 shots, because of the last round in the cylinder, fired in one moment where the bear's anatomy mattered more than the number stamped on the barrel. This is that moment. And it forces a harder question. Is the .357 on your hip enough when the last round is all you have? Everyone asked the same question about this cartridge in grizzly bears. Is the .357 powerful enough? That question has had an answer for decades, but it is the wrong question. When a charge is already happening and you have 2 seconds to draw, aim, and fire, what actually determines whether you survive? Energy or the bullet you loaded, where it lands, how many shots you can control, and what real encounters show? We examine all 5. Both sides of this debate are going to be uncomfortable. Picture yourself at a trailhead in western Montana. A Ruger GP100 with a 4-inch barrel rides on your hip, loaded with Buffalo Boar's 180-grain hard-cast Outdoorsman. You think you are carrying 1,400 feet per second and 780 foot-pounds. The chronograph tells a different story. Buffalo Bore lists that load at 1,400 feet per second from their test revolver. But independent data from a 4-inch 6.86 comes back closer to 1,300, which drops you under 700 foot-pounds. That gap between the box and the barrel is where overconfidence lives. 1,000 foot-pounds is often used as a rough hunting benchmark for deer-sized game. It is not a biological minimum. But by that reference, the .357 from a typical 4-inch barrel falls well below the line. A factory 158-grain load is lower still. The .44 Magnum with a 240-grain factory load sits right at that benchmark. Buffalo Bore's 340-grain hardcast pushes past 1,500 foot-pounds. The gap is substantial on paper. So why does the conversation keep going? Because energy on paper has never told anyone whether they live or die. Subscribe if data instead of opinions is what you came for. Now the part that changes the equation. The number on the barrel matters less than what sits in the cylinder. Expansion is valuable when controlled mushrooming and rapid energy transfer are the goal. But against an animal where deep penetration through heavy tissue and dense bone keeps you alive, that same design works against you. Buffalo Bore's 180-grain hard-cast flat nose does not expand. It holds shape and drives deep. User testing in calibrated gel has recorded penetration past 40 inches. A 158-grain hollow point from the same revolver penetrates roughly 18 to 22 inches and opens to just over ½ an inch. Against heavy bone and dense tissue, that expansion can reduce the penetration margin you may need to reach critical structures. Same revolver, same cartridge on the brass, 2 entirely different results based on what was loaded. A Montana game warden in 1987 proved that the hardest way possible, with 6 hollow points and a 500-pound grizzly already breaking his leg. Getting the bullet right still leaves a problem no amount of energy solves. Where the round lands determines everything. A grizzly's skull is thick and steeply angled, which makes a frontal shot far more difficult than it appears. A round fired into the forehead can glance off the bone rather than penetrating. There are documented cases. A shooter placed the round between the eyes, the bullet skidded across the top of the skull, and the animal kept coming. The critical structures are protected by complex bone angles, which makes reliable penetration extremely difficult during a charge. That is not a marksmanship failure. It is an anatomy problem regardless of caliber. Same gun, same ammunition, Two opposite outcomes depending on angle and anatomy. That is the story of Lou Kiss. June 1987, Bob Marshall Wilderness, Montana. Lou Kiss, 60 years old, warden captain, 22 years on the job, more than 100 grizzlies handled in his career. His team was releasing a 500-pound boar trapped for killing cattle on the Blackfeet Reservation. The bear sat in a lightweight aluminum barrel trap on a pickup bed. Kiss climbed on top and lifted the gate. The driver was supposed to pull the truck away. The truck did not move. The grizzly came out, turned, and reached up after Kiss. The aluminum trap, built light for helicopter transport and not secured to the truck, slid off the bed. Kiss fell directly onto the bear. It bit his chest. The Nikon camera around his neck absorbed the bite. Then it seized his leg. The jaw broke his tibia. While the bear chewed his leg, Kiss drew his Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum, loaded with 158 grain jacketed hollow points. 4 rounds into the skull at contact distance. All 4 ricocheted off the bone and lodged in the hump. The bear did not slow down. The 5th shot missed. The bear was still on him, 1 round left. Kiss grabbed the animal, forced the muzzle under its chin, and fired. The bullet entered where the bone was thin, traveled upward, and severed the spinal cord at the base of the skull. The bear dropped. From his hospital bed, Kiss said one sentence that belongs in every caliber debate. I wouldn't want another go-round. 3 lessons. First, 4 hollow points at contact range failed to penetrate the skull. The incident illustrates why bullet construction can matter as much as caliber. It was the difference between 4 rounds that failed to penetrate and 4 that might have produced a different outcome. Second, anatomy and angle determined the outcome. The killing round was the same cartridge, same distance. What changed was where it entered. Third comes down to margin, and it is brutal. 6-shot revolver, 4 ricocheted, 1 missed, 1 worked. If that last round had not found the spine, this story ends differently. One story is conviction. Data is where it has to hold up. Dean Weingarten spent years compiling a large collection of documented cases involving handguns and bears. His dataset now exceeds 170 incidents. In his framework, success means the bear stopped its aggressive behavior, killed, fled, or broke off, not an instant stop. By that measure, 14 incidents involved .357 Magnums, 13 successful, 1 failure. An Alaska geologist in 2010 who likely never connected. Across the handgun cases in his compilation, roughly 98% were classified as successful by that same definition. Weingarten's conclusion? The factor that predicted survival was not bullet size. It was whether the shooter was ready and capable of putting rounds where they counted. Tom Smith and colleagues studied 269 firearms encounters in Alaska. Firearms stopped aggressive bears about 76% overall. Handguns, 84%. Long guns, 75%. Their spray research found spray stopped aggression in 92% of 72 incidents. 2 caveats. The firearm study excluded Alaska's Defense of Life and Property records, and the 2 studies were never built for direct comparison. But their critical finding stands. Firearm variables, gun type, and number of shots were not useful predictors of outcome. Caliber told them almost nothing. That finding supports the central argument of this video. Caliber alone tells us far less than most caliber debates suggest. Everything above says the .357 trails the .44 in energy. It does. But there is a number the caliber debate almost never reaches. In a typical comparison, the .44 Magnum generates roughly 60% more free recoil energy than the .357. The exact figure shifts with the gun, the barrel, and the load. But the .44 kicks substantially harder. Recoil is not a comfort issue. It is a follow-up problem. A gun that causes flinching or delays sight recovery costs you rounds on target. And that is exactly why the real-world data matters more than a recoil chart alone. If you cannot control the gun, energy on paper does not help you. The .357 also lets you practice with .38 Special from the same revolver. That can make training more affordable and more frequent for some shooters. Building reflexes for a moment measured in seconds, not minutes. That does not make the .357 a better cartridge on a spec sheet. It makes it a cartridge more people might actually shoot well when the shooting matters. The most powerful cartridge in the world is irrelevant if the shot never reaches the target. Here is the honest answer in 3 layers. The .357 with heavy hardcast 4-inch barrel or longer, a trained shooter, and bear spray alongside it has demonstrated real-world capability against grizzlies. Lou Kiz is alive. That is documented. But calling it enough oversimplifies a situation where the margin for error is small. Below that, a short barrel with reduced velocity or a shooter who does not train is in a space where luck outweighs preparation. Better than nothing, but do not confuse owning a gun with having a plan. And below that, the answer is no. Hollow points trade away the penetration you need. For the largest coastal brown bears and Kodiak bears, where body size can be dramatically greater than an inland grizzly, the .357 becomes an even harder proposition. That is rifle territory. For someone who cannot reliably hit a fast-moving target under extreme stress, bear spray may offer a larger margin for error because it does not require the same degree of precision as a firearm. Many bear safety recommendations emphasize spray for that reason. The honest answer has never been one or the other. The real question was never what number was stamped on the barrel. The cartridge matters. The bullet matters. The shooter matters. And the circumstances matter most. That is why the answer is neither yes nor no. The .357 Magnum is plausible. It is documented, but it is not a permission slip to be overconfident. So tell me in the comments, and be honest with yourself, if a grizzly came out of the brush right now and you had 2 seconds, what would you want in your hand? Have you practiced with it under any pressure at all? That is the question that matters, and it has nothing to do with caliber charts. If measured answers instead of easy ones is what you came for, subscribe. We will see you in the next one.